Oh, sound like I'm on. That's pretty loud. Yeah, I'm gonna have to holler at it more. I'll have to whisper today. Want to put that down a little bit. Well, I'd like to say good morning to everybody. Clock says it's 10:30, so second bell's already rung. Class is over. It's time for church. That went by fast, didn't it? We didn't get nothing accomplished. I've got the envelopes for Green Valley Bible Camp going around. You got a little $1 or $2 to throw in there. Helps out the Bible camp. And good work going on there. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 11, starting verse 1 this morning. Not sure how far we'll get, but we'll go somewhere. We'll go somewhere with it. Good to see the Pings back among the living. I got to scoot back just far enough Bob can't get me with that stick.
I didn't either.
All right, we're going to get started this morning. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 11. I'm going to start with the first 6 verses. And see if we can't gather up some sense about everything that's going on. So when Jesus had finished giving instruction to the 12, he went away from there to teach and preach in their towns. Meanwhile, John the Baptist, who was in prison, heard about these messianic goings-on, and he sent word to his own followers. "Are you the one who is coming?" he asked, "or should we be looking for someone else?" "Go and tell John," replied Jesus, "what you've seen and heard. Blind people are seeing, lame people are walking, lepers are being cleansed, deaf people can hear again, the dead are being raised to life, and the poor are hearing the good news. And God bless you if you're not upset by what I'm doing." Okay. At this time, we know that John was in prison, and he would just hear about what's going on, and it's more about change. We've talked a lot about change, or not getting what the people not getting what they were expecting. We're going to talk a little bit more about that this morning. We, as a general rule, don't like change, and we don't like to accept change unless, of course, we can see the finish. You know, if we can see the finished product, you know, if you're, changing the siding on your house or the color or changing automobiles, we like that kind of change, but we don't like just change that we have no control over and change that we can't see the end to or the finished product. I don't know how many of you guys have been down Highway 16, Weddington, to the cutoff. I've lived out on Weddington for 30 odd years. I've always crossed the bridge and turned left, got on the highway. It's just always the way it's always been. I don't like it or dislike it. That's the way it's always been. You go across the bridge, you cut a left, across traffic, and you get on the highway going north. Not a problem. It's always worked. Sometimes it's not worked as well as others, but it's always worked. And then along came the change, okay? Now, it wasn't an immediate change. We all, anybody that's been that way, saw the change happening, okay? We didn't really understand what the change was going to be. It was hard to tell with all the construction and all the nonsense going on there. But we saw the change coming. We saw the change happening. We knew something was going to be different. We didn't know what it was. And then it happened. They opened that thing up. Well, I don't know, and I'm not going to judge, but I don't know how many people in Northwest Arkansas can't read. But and maybe they just don't understand what they're reading. But when the big signs are flashing for a mile that say, right turn Shiloh only, which is the frontage road, center lane, 49 NB, and for those of you who are not clear on that, that means northbound. That means if you're going north, center lane, and Fayetteville, just the left lane. The instruction and it seems really simple. But let me tell you, it's different. And so if you went that way for the first couple of weeks of that new change, we'll just call it a change, because it was still going getting to the same place, but we're just taking a different way to get there. People in the right lane were backing up because they don't want to go on Shiloh. They want to go the same way they've always gone to southbound to get on the highway. So they're backed up, trying to turn in to the center lane, which is these folks. They're not really sure where they're going, but they know they probably need to go straight because there's nowhere else to go. And so it just starts ricking up and starts backing up because people don't want to change. And then you get to the other side of the bridge, and you're not turning left to get on the highway no more, that we've done for 30-something years. You're turning right to go northbound. So you get on right, and you scooch on around and get on the highway. Real smooth, it just goes real easy. So now you can see the change. You can recognize the difference. You see the end result of all the stuff that's been going on for now, okay? John is in that position of seeing the change, okay? The people in Jesus' time are seeing change. Now, some of them are in the right lane with their blinker on. They don't know what to do. They're just going to block everybody else from going the way they want to go. And some people are real smooth and go the way they don't. And some people just not sure they're riding those brakes. They're just not sure what they want to do. So Jesus is at this time in his ministry is dealing with all these factors of he's doing something that's different than what the people are expecting him to do. Okay. Now the people can't see the end result of Jesus' ministry at this moment, but especially John. Okay, John still has the mindset of, well, we know he's in prison. Okay, he has a different view of how things are going to flow, and so the way that Jesus is bringing in God's kingdom, and John was expecting the kingdom, you know. They've been preaching the kingdom, and he's not convinced that Jesus is the way to the kingdom, but he is aware of the change. He thinks it's going to be a different change than what it is, but he's aware of the change. So it's different. The way he's bringing in God's kingdom isn't what others had imagined. Even through history, and we've talked about that quite a bit.
And John was a very devoted Jew. It's not like, I want something different. He was dedicated to the way it always was.
Absolutely. He had been going that direction his whole life. And so some aren't getting the message. You know, they still got their blinker on. They're just not getting the message. They're not reading the sign, and they're going. So even in Jesus' hometown, you go to Capernaum, and they're getting the wrong idea, and they're refusing to go along because they're not clear on what the kingdom is supposed to look like, okay? And what it will be like, what God's kingdom will be like, what's been prophesied through time to this moment. And now we can see even another I don't know if I would call it, it would have to be something on Jesus' mind that his cousin doesn't even recognize what's going on, and so it's harder for Jesus because John's having doubts. Now he's in prison, and the reason he's in prison is, he called out Herod on things he shouldn't have been doing, and he called him out for marrying his brother's ex-wife, but all of that was leading to John's announcement that the kingdom is at hand. Okay, God's true king was on the way, and Herod was not the king. Okay, and that would cause the king to put John in prison for that, and so God is going to replace Herod as king. Herod is a physical king in the Jewish area, so there's no doubt why Herod put him in prison. And so John would have been dealing with this disappointment of what's going on in Jesus' ministry, okay? Because obviously John is looking for God to dethrone Herod, push out the wrong, all those things we've talked about as far as military action. John is right along with everybody else. That's what his idea, or what he's the picture he's seen in his head. That's what's going to be going on. So it doesn't sound at all like what was supposed to be going on. He wanted Jesus to be this man of fire, Elijah-like, coming through and sweep through Israel and deal with the prophets of Baal, like Elijah did. He wants to sweep through Israel and deal with those that are there. But Jesus was doing basically the complete opposite of the expectations of John and obviously the population too. Jesus was going around befriending tax collectors and sinners. He was gaining this huge reputation, but not for doing what John wanted him to do. He was doing it for the kingdom of mercy, and that sort of understanding. So John was asking, and he sent his followers, disciples, is Jesus the one that was to come? Is he the one that we've been looking for to do all these things that we have a picture of our mind of what's going to happen? Or is he not? Because the things that we have in our mind are not happening. And so maybe this is not the guy. Maybe he's not the one. Maybe he's just a prophet. So but we know he is the Messiah, okay? And we know he really came to do God's will. It didn't look like, even, and we look at John and we talk about what Jim said. He was a devout, religious man to the point of living in the wilderness, with all those aspects that come with living in the wilderness. And so it's a different story than what John was looking for. He isn't thinking of himself in terms of Elijah calling down fire from heaven. He was thinking of passages like Isaiah 35, the great prophecies that would happen when Israel was not so much judged and condemned, but restored after judgment. Exile would be over. The blind and the lame would be healed, and God's people would be set free at last. And so you can kind of see the correlation between what John thinks is supposed to happen, the things that Jesus are doing, but not in the way that it was expected to be. So one of the Dead Sea Scrolls, well, I'll get to that in a second. But John's sense of judgment, I guess, or his idea of the coming of the Messiah was to bring judgment, and he will, but already the mercy that comes after judgment, the healing that comes after the time of sorrow, this it's coming, and Jesus is bringing it. And that was the Messiah's main, the definition of the Messiah's task through Scripture. And we see in the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's a passage that predicts that when the Messiah comes, he will heal the sick, raise the dead, bring good news to the poor, and those kind of things. Sounds real familiar, doesn't it? Sounds exactly like what Jesus is doing. And yet it was not looked favorably upon at the moment because it was just construction. That was what's going on. It's just construction. It's just all the things that have to happen in order for the new to come. And so, just like wicked people don't like the message of judgment because they think it's pointed at them, which obviously it is, good people don't like the message of mercy. And I thought this was very interesting because I can put myself in this category. And if you think to yourself about it, I think you'll find you may lean that way also. Good people don't like the message of mercy because we feel like people are going to get away with something, get away with wickedness. I don't know because of the mercy, but in light of the access to the mercy, if that makes any sense at all. But mercy was, what at the heart of Jesus' ministry as a Messiah, just like it is, in the church's work today. We have to have that heart of mercy. So this is where and how God was at work. Now, those that recognized it and weren't offended by it, we have to separate those peoples out. But if they recognize it, not offended by it, because they were expecting something else, they are going to bask in God's blessing. Okay, if you don't reject the Messiah and His message and His way of bringing forth that message, there's lots of aspects of that. You're going to be blessed because of it, and so that gets us through the first 6 verses. So now we're going to move on to John the Baptist in chapter 11, verse 7 through 15. We'll find out a little bit about John. So as the messengers were going away, Jesus began to speak to the crowds about John. What were you expecting to see, he asked, when you went out into the desert? A reed wobbling in the wind? No. Well, then, what were you expecting to see? Someone dressed in silk and satin? If you want to see people like that, you'd have to go to somebody's royal palace. So what were you expecting to see? A prophet? Now we're getting somewhere. Yes, indeed, and much more than a prophet. This is the one the Bible was talking about when he says, see, I'm sending a messenger, and he will clear your path before you. I'm telling you the truth, John the Baptist is the greatest mother's son there ever was. But even the least significant person in heaven's kingdom, is greater than he. From the time John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has been forcing its way in. And the men of force are trying to grab it. All the prophets and the law, you see, make their prophecies up until the time of John. In fact, if you believe it, he is Elijah, the one who was to come. If you've got ears, then listen. He's commending John. He's explaining John's role in the coming of the kingdom. He's explaining God's providence in the prophecies being fulfilled through John, up into John, pointing to John. And so the change, and the change for the better, is becoming coming to the forefront, is being made clear, and we're gonna talk a lot about that. But sometimes difference and change don't set well with everyone. Okay? And I'm going to read a little bit about cars. Everybody likes cars, right? A little bit about cars. One of the things that was so dramatic in the 20th century was the invention of the automobile. Okay, and good or bad, it was coming, and so it brought all new kind of opportunities, and along with those opportunities, it brought dangers, and it brought possibilities. It brought change. It brought a lot of change. And so if you were living in that time period and you were a carriage maker, say you were a family of carriage, and horse-drawn carriage is what I'm talking about. Okay? So just so everybody's clear. If you were a carriage maker and your family made its living building carriages, had been for hundreds of years. You know, they've been having horse-drawn carriage since, you know, the time of the horse and the time of the wheel, and so it's been a while. So people have wanted them forever. And as far as your company is concerned, as your family business is concerned, they'll always want them. You know, how can they not? It's been forever. You know, and so this is one of the changes that's going to come. You're good at it. Your family is good at it. One brother is good at drawing them out, and the other brother is good at carving them out, and the other brother is good at selling them. And you know, you have a family business going. People from all around. You're taking orders for these horseless carriages. We're going to call them horseless carriages because that's all they were at the time. I mean, for horse-drawn carriages, because there wasn't anything such thing as a horseless carriage at the time. But so you're involved in a family heritage. You're involved in a family business. You're involved in preparing for the future of your family. Okay, and you're doing what you've always done as far as this carriage business is concerned. So one day, one of the brothers comes in and says, "Hey, you know, it's over. You're not going to be part of the business world anymore. We've been talking about it, and it's bad news because there's this new thing called the automobile, the horseless carriage. You call it whatever you want at the time, but we know it as a car. Cars are coming, and you know, we can see the change. I mean, we don't see any horse-drawn carriages much anymore, depending on what community you're in, obviously. But there's not a market for it. There's not a business out there for it, like there would have been back in that time. So, you know, these were the greatest carriage makers in the country. They had a reputation for making the carriages all over the country. But it's not going to happen for very much longer. Okay? And so the guy putting engines together in the factory is going to be doing better than you. Even though this is, you're at the top of your game now, there will be no call for it then. So everything that's gone with the invention of the car has not been good. But we just see the good. Okay? We see the convenience. We get to see the growth. Okay? The same thing with the scriptures. We got hindsight with the scriptures of what's coming. We know what's going to happen. We know how we got here, and this is their future, and so we see their future. So we get to see from the beginning of the wheel and the cart and the horse, and we get to see where we end up now with Corvettes. I mean, can you imagine a Corvette? And so. Cars have been a blessing and a curse. But the point is this: Jesus was paying John the Baptist a very great compliment. His work has come to an end. Okay? It wasn't because it was bad. It's not because it was a failure. Okay? It was because it was a success. Okay? The success of John the Baptist's ministry helped roll forward to Jesus' ministry. The success of the horseless carriage, or the horseless carriage, is based on the horse-drawn carriage. Okay, or it wouldn't be called the horseless carriage. I mean, it's just the end result of all the work that had been done from here to here, and John gets to see. He doesn't recognize it yet, obviously, and we're going to, we know that he doesn't recognize that yet. But Jesus is saying that all of this Jewish history, the whole sweep and swath of history that led up to John and his work, is now being wound up. Okay, if the law and the prophets were looking forward to something that was yet to come, they're set aside when the new thing arrives. Okay? And so, up until this point, when the new arrives, it replaces the old and moves forward. And it's a hard-fought battle. It wasn't just everybody had a horse and a carriage, and then the next day everybody had a car. It wasn't like that at all. We can see the how history has brought forth all the different iterations of those sorts of things. And so because the carriage was a success, we can see that. So if the law and prophets were looking forward to something that was yet to come, when it arrives, they're not looking forward anymore. Okay? So from that point on, when what you're looking for arrives, you don't look for it anymore. You move on from there, and that's what Jesus is telling John the Baptist. So at the point of all this is Jesus is offering a new way of understanding what God has going on as far as a timetable or a process for the kingdom. So he's telling his hearers that Israel's long history, from Abraham to Moses, through the prophets to the present time, was preparation. It was long preparation. It was one long getting ready time. I like that. It's one long getting ready time. Now the preparation was over, and the reality is here. Okay. Now we know John was the greatest among those that prepared. He was the one that prepared the way, and so John was the Elijah. He was the one that was to come. So he told John when John was asking if Jesus was Elijah. Jesus said, "No, that's you. You're the one. You're the one with the fire. You're the Elijah-like person." Jesus was saying, I'm the one that comes after the Elijah-like person. Okay? And so, and it's only a hint, he doesn't come out and say it, but he does say to the audience, those who have ears, let them hear. Okay? And that's kind of a hint that there's some cryptic message in there. Pay attention. Pay really close attention to what I'm saying, and you'll get the answer that's lurking underneath the top of that passage. Because reality only will come when you look into that. And you might be wondering why. Why would Jesus not just come out and say, I'm the one. I'm the Messiah. I'm the Christ. I'm, all the things that we know Jesus is. Why would he not come out and just say that? Yeah.
I was about to ask you if you noticed where every time somebody came to Jesus and asked, are you the Messiah? Are you the one? He always seemed to say, who do you say I am?
Right.
And the more I think about that, and recently it's come to my kind of comprehension, I guess, it seems like that if you're being a Christian and doing Christianity correctly, as Jesus was doing and being correctly the representative of his Father, it's more like Christianity, I'm accusing you of being a Christian. It's more an accusation that a third person can observe because of what you're doing and behaving and walking and talking and being, because Christian means Christ-like. And I think you were the one that told me that Christ actually means anointed one. And so when you call somebody a Christian, you're saying, I'm accusing you of being like the anointed one. And it just seems to me like that's what Jesus is representing each time somebody comes to him and asks him, are you the one? He's letting them make an accusation against him.
Sure. And not necessarily even an accusation, just asking a question.
Because it's what they believe in their heart.
Absolutely. And he's allowing them to make up their mind about who he is, based on all the information that they have, all the proof that they have, all the facts that are laid out before them. Sure, absolutely. And it's not like I used to do my mom like this all the time, and this is the opposite of this. So let me preface this by saying that this is not the way Jesus was asking that question when he says, "Who do you think I am?" or "Who do you say I am?" or "Who do others say I am?" When my mom would ask me a question and I didn't want to give her the answer, and we'll just say, what time did you get home last night? Well, what time do you think I got home last night? It was almost like I'm trying to find out how much information she has before I actually commit to what I'm willing to say. And so, in one sense, that Jesus is the same way. How much are you willing to commit based on what you've seen, what the knowledge that you think I have? Who do you think I am? And I was bad about that. What time did you get home? And I said, well, I went through town at whatever time. They used to have a clock on the bank when you went through town. The little town. Just went through. It was 10:30. It was also 11, and it was also 11:30, and it was also midnight. It was also all of these other things, but I don't think Jesus is like that. I think he's asking on purpose to, you have to search yourself, and if I was looking for, in which they are, if I was looking for the Christ, based on all the evidence, I would say that I found him. Based on all the things that Christ did, all the things that he was teaching, all the miracles he was performing, all of the things that Jesus did, if I was looking for the Christ, I think this guy fits the bill. He fits the bill. Now, he doesn't fit the picture in my mind of what the new king is going to look like. And we can look back to Saul. We can look back to the scriptures tell us that Saul was head and shoulders taller than everybody else. He was a big, strapping guy that looked like the leader of men and looked like the king, and he was the king. And so when you picture, if you're a Jewish person, you picture the king, you picture Saul. As far as for power and might and those kind of things. And so Jesus didn't fit that bill. Go ahead, Mark.
John was looking for somebody who fit the bill, like you say. And Jesus, that's why Jesus told him the blind see, the lame walk, and the deaf hear. Tell him that, you'll know.
Right. Based on the evidence. That's exactly right. John was in prison, so he couldn't see for himself. He couldn't sit down with Jesus and just have a discussion, because that, are you who you say you are? He had to base his belief. He had to base his relationship with Jesus on what others were saying and what was being done. And we know from the scriptures that's the purpose of those things that were being done.
But they had a lot of fans.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there was people running around claiming to be Messiah. So it's just like when you get called
Yeah,
today.
that's exactly right.
You don't know who it is. You think, this is probably Sam.
Right.
And I can tell you from people who call people making it hard to get in touch.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And it was difficult. There were, and what Donna's saying is there were roadblocks in the way of someone believing that this was the Messiah, because he wasn't the first one. He wasn't by himself in claiming, and he wasn't claiming it, but there were others that had came and claimed to be the Messiah. We've lived through that in our generation, with the David Koreshes and the ones that, Jim Jones, the Guyanas, and those kinds of things, and even worse, the ones that think the spacecraft is coming to get them. I think we lived through that too, and so we need to. We would have to, I would think, be diligent enough to verify what was going on, So you can't fault the people for not just immediately saying, "Oh yeah, that must be right." You have to stand back and look at the big picture. You have to stand back and compare it with what you know as far as history, with Scripture that they know, and that was the hard part. I think was putting the person of Jesus in the box that they had set up for the one that was going to save them. Okay, because the salvation they were looking for is not the salvation that Jesus brought, and so you can't fault the people for not having that understanding. We look at it and think it'd really be hard to ignore somebody that could cure leprosy and make the blind see and the deaf hear and the lame walk and the dead rise, and yeah, you can say, man, if I was there, it'd be easy. It'd be easy. What's wrong with these people? How can they not understand who this is? Even though they've spent their entire history as a people looking for that exact thing, it just doesn't fit the form that they thought it was going to be. and that was one of the things that made it difficult. And so, being the one was not as easy to recognize as I see it in my mind. Okay, go ahead. Right. And that's what he was building on. And that's why we're, as we go through Matthew, we can see, the layers. The layers start building. We can see the construction. And of course we get to see the finished interchange. We get to see the finished product and know. But we also have that, we get to have that hindsight of watching it build. What she was saying was Jesus didn't just come on the scene and just proclaim who he was and why he was there. He built on different levels of, we even saw his, through his miracles, we saw those grow and build. And we saw, we're watching his ministry grow and build. And we see, part of, with John the Baptist, we get to see part of the mechanics behind him coming onto the scene. We get to see the one that heralded in the new king. And so next week we're going to talk some about this, but why? Why wouldn't Jesus want to just come on the scene and say who he is, why he's there, what's going to happen, and back it up with all the things that he did? Yes?
It's a lot like when I'm traveling. There are some people I let know that I'm coming through their town, old friends. But sometimes what they do is they pull so-and-so, and so-and-so pulls so-and-so, and I never get to go where I want to go. And I think that's what it was. When the Bible says that Jesus set his face to Jerusalem, he's letting us know that he came here for a specific purpose. And if everyone knew it, knew who he was and what he did, imagine the difficulty that he would have accomplishing God's will.
Oh, absolutely. And we can even see, where he was inundated with people and had to send the crowds away. Okay? It wasn't because he didn't like the crowds, obviously. It's because that was a detour he was not willing to make in his travel in his ministry and his focus. He didn't change his focus on who he was there to minister to, how he was there, how he was going to minister to them, and the outcome he was looking for based on his ministry. Okay, he was focused, like what Mike said. He didn't get detoured and mired up in the things of the world that can get in your way. We see pictures of it, little snippets of it, of what the disciples, the apostles went through when they went on their mission. You got people trying to buy their power. People trying to influence them into doing other things for gain or whatever. And Christ sent them out with nothing and told them to take nothing and bring nothing. And it was freely given, and you give it freely. And so the obstacles that were involved in the beginning of the ministry is what Mike was talking about getting away from. And one of those obstacles would have been Herod. Okay? Had Jesus allowed himself to be proclaimed king, where do you think he would have ended up as far as Herod was concerned? On a spit somewhere. More, at least in prison, but more than likely just dead, because that's just the way that type of system worked back in that day. We can see that John the Baptist was in prison just for calling out the king for something that he had done that he knew was wrong, and everybody around knew was wrong. He's just the one who said it out loud, and he's in prison. And so if you look at what the circumstances around Christ's ministry and who was in charge at the time and that kind of thing, we find Jesus, and what we talked about, people making up their own mind, we find Jesus encouraging folks to look at the evidence. We find him encouraging others to put aside their preconceived notion of what the overthrow or the coming of the kingdom or the king on the throne and all those this warrior king mindset and what they see, and just follow the evidence, follow what Jesus is saying and why, and seeing the outcome from the mercy that he shows, from the message that he preaches, all of those things. Look at that rather than just being focused on what you want to happen as far as Christ's kingdom is concerned. We can find ourselves doing that, but as Christians, and Mike was talking about it, and as Christians, we're taught to let our light shine. I've never heard anybody just going through town, hi, I'm a Christian, hi, I'm a Christian, hi, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian, hi, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian. I don't think that carries the weight that behaving like a Christian and the influence that can have on others does. Proclaiming something and my dad always used to say, do as I say, not as I do. I don't know if anybody else has ever heard that before, but we can find ourselves in that, and that's what I was going to say. Poor actions speak just as loud or louder than good actions, and so we need to remember that. Next week we'll start on Matthew chapter 11, verses 16, and it's this one thing. Far better that we explain ourselves in such a way that forces others to think it all out for themselves. Okay? Make others come to the decision or the understanding. So, thank you.